Fleetwood Mac have just released a new live album from their 1982 Mirage tour. We're going to take a look at that today, unpack the historical context, in particular Stevie Nicks' performance. And we also asked the question, with this previously being released via VHS and DVD, why this didn't get the streaming and Blu-ray treatment. Was this 2 hours well spent, or did you struggle through this?
Yeah, good morning, mate. Look, I'm kind of torn between, is it a little bit of a cash cow, or is it actually really worth listening to? I think it's definitely one for the fans. I think there's some particular highlights off this, but for me it was more unpacking the history of the band, which I kind of knew a little bit about, but actually kind of doing a little bit of research over the weekend. It's really quite interesting, the story leading up to this particular live performance, which many kind of consider the peak of Fleetwood Mac before the rest of the history kind of continued, mate. What are your initial thoughts on this?
I think live recordings, you see every band throwing out a rare recording these days. Yep. They're really scraping at the bottom of the barrel. This one does hold some historical significance because it's really the end of the real classic era of Fleetwood Mac. They toured in 1982. After this recording, they did a few more concerts, but effectively they went on hiatus. So the band in this configuration didn't get together live for another 15 years. They did record Tango in the Night as the classic quintet, but basically this was it. And I mean, let's face it was a pretty hot run. I mean, Rumours was amazing. The other albums aren't too bad as well, but what you really get is a best of from this particular era. We know that Fleetwood Mac had a number of different eras and going all the way back to the late 60s. This is obviously from that late 70s to early 80s period. And it's great to hear it. It's great to hear the concert footage. I'm not sure if you had the same feeling about it, but I guess if you're listening to it in isolation, you might feel as if it's another concert. I'd prefer to listen to the studio recording.
Yeah, look, that's really interesting to say, mate. What I found kind of interesting was the fact that they had released 11 albums before or including Rumours. So Rumours became a number one smash across the world in 1977, I believe. But then they kind of went out and did this experimental album called Tusk, which I haven't really actually given much of a listen to. And then Mirage has come out in 1982, and then they've toured on the back of this. And as you mentioned, it's a bit of a best of. But for me, the actual songs that I had already known, kind of growing up with them, Go Your Own Way, all that kind of stuff, are particular favourites of this live performance for me. And if we're going to talk about the tracks, I think for me the particular favourite, mate, is The Chain. I mean, it is an absolute belter. And look, I will give you credit, mate. You've sent me this a few times over the years, late at night over a few whiskeys, and it is an absolute belter. And for me, it really shows the emotion of the band, and it's real. It's not put on. It's genuine, and you really don't get that very often in music anymore. So that's why I think it is worth bands releasing particular live sets if it really is worth it. And that's where I kind of sit.
Yeah, no, interesting. I agree. Like, there's been plenty of videos on YouTube done about this particular performance of The Chain. I think that it was amazing to see it because this has been released on VHS, and we're going to get to the video part in a second. But yeah, I thought that was an incredible performance of that particular song. Other songs that I thought were also interesting were, I think, the ones that they released in Mirage. Now, you've got to remember, Rumours was just an album full of bangers. Like, some of their songs, they had an album full of songs which any one of those songs could have been any other band's best record. Like, let's face it. But exactly right. But I felt that songs like Hold Me and Gypsy, which you probably don't remember as much. They don't probably come on the radio quite so much as the Rumours songs these days. You listen to them, and I think going back through your childhood, you do remember these songs being played. Hold Me is a great song. Yeah, Gypsy's a great song. And you've got Tusk as well, which is a little bit more experimental, but it comes across as a great record of all their tunes from that particular concert. I think that there's probably a question about, and I'm not sure you've picked up on this, on Stevie Nicks' performance. Now, we're going to see that from the chain, from the footage, there was a lot of the interplay, particularly between Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. I'm not so sure if her performance was really as good as what people are saying. That a lot of things I'm reading are suggesting it was just a magnificent performance. I think that she was actually quite ill at the time, and I think she was also grieving about a friend. Now, people have been saying that it's been inspired, but I'm not actually sure. Like, I think listening to it, I'm not 100% sure if she was really on her own game with this concert.
Yeah, look, I'd agree with that, mate. And look, to be honest, I don't know the full history probably as in-depth as you, but I really thought, say, on the particular track, The Chain, Lindsey Buckingham's kind of passion compared to Stevie Nicks probably really isn't as on par. But as you mentioned before, she's probably got a lot of stuff going on. And you've got to remember that this was one of the biggest bands in the world at that particular time. But I kind of agree with you on that, mate. It'd be interesting to see in the comments whether people agree or firmly disagree with us as well. But let's talk about the visuals, mate. Why is there no video re-release of this?
I'm scratching my head with that. Yeah, I think that's one thing that's really missing from this, and I was hoping that they would release the footage. Now, as we've said, we've seen The Chain on YouTube from this particular concert, so we're really pumped to actually listen to an upgraded version from an audio perspective. So one of the things I like from video concerts is the visuals. I think the visuals paint the full picture. Otherwise, you should be just listening to the studio. Now, with The Chain in particular, you can see the interplay. I think when you listen to the song by itself, you just don't get that quite so much. I think you have to see the footage to really understand how good a performance this was. So I am scratching my head as to why they haven't re-released it and upgraded it and remastered. It's been recorded on film. Recording on film means it's got the potential to be really upgraded and given a facelift. It's been given a release in VHS back in the early 80s. I think there was a DVD of some of the songs, but I think that's the one question mark as to whether we will see this in the future. Maybe there's just staggering the releases, but yeah, I thought that was disappointing. I'm not sure if you agree.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's certain bands and artists that can probably pull off releasing live versions, on Spotify or CD, and you can, turn down the lights, have a glass of wine, and listen to it, and really immerse yourself in the sound. But an artist like Jeff Buckley would come to mind, like his live at Olympia would be something that you can really kind of get into without the visuals. But I think for a particular artist like Fleetwood Mac that are a band, first of all, and have that interplay, and you want to see the history, you want to see the sheer size of the crowd as well, just to immerse yourself into. I think that's really one part of it missing. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do kind of upscale it to 4K and Disney get their kind of dirty mitts on it and release it. But which I'd personally love to see, man. I think it'd be fantastic. So I'm just hoping that they will do that.
And what about live concert records? I'm not a big fan. Like, I just think that bands are really taking the mickey. They're really just trying to scraping at the bottom of the barrel. They're coming out with concerts that are all of a sudden classic and memorable. I think there are exceptions to the rule. I think this is an exception, right? But do you agree with me? Or do you think that, they have some value?
Oh, I do. I think there's two schools of thought there. I mean, there's no harm done if you're paying for Spotify and you want to have a listen to it. It's not costing you anything, really. But when you're looking at the physical format and physical re-release, we here at Indie Miners, we've done some, reviews on Pink Floyd, and from our opinion, it might be a clear cash cow, but in this particular case, they've condensed it down, and I don't think it's overly over the top, but I definitely think there's a market for it with a certain age gap, with certain amounts of money in their pockets. But really, for me, it's no harm, no foul, really, but it's a little bit of a, I don't know, cash cow.
I don't know. I just find myself listening to some of these records once or twice and going back to the studio. Please let us know in the comments what you think of this particular CD? Did you enjoy it? It was 2 hours too long. Do you like the live album genre? Did you get disappointed when you found out that this particular concert wasn't getting a visual release? Let us know in the comments. Let us know what you think.